Throughout human history, we've gazed at the stars and asked the same question. Is there a way to reach them? A path between our world and what lies beyond? The answer, according to virtually every ancient civilization, was yes. In Genesis 28:12, the Bible describes how Jacob, sleeping with a stone for a pillow, experiences a stunning vision. He dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. This isn't just a dream. It's what scholars call an axis mundi, a cosmic axis linking human and divine realms. The place is so sacred that Jacob himself proclaims, "This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." But what if I told you that this supposedly unique divine revelation was actually part of a pattern that spans across continents and millennia? From the ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the pyramid texts of Egypt, from Hittite world mountains to Greek tales of Olympus, from Canaanite standing stones to Chinese heavenly trees, this same symbol appears everywhere. Comparative mythologists have traced these connections for decades. The evidence suggests something shocking. This supposedly unique vision granted to Jacob borrowed its central imagery from the surrounding pagan cultures of the ancient Near East. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most persistent religious symbols in human history, the cosmic stairway, where heaven and earth meet. We'll expose how these sacred gates served identical purposes across radically different belief systems. Whether for a king's soul ascending to join the gods, deities descending to bless or judge humanity, or marking the very center of a properly ordered cosmos, the pattern is unmistakable. The shocking truth is that humanity has been building, dreaming of, and worshiping ladders to heaven for thousands of years before the Bible was written. And the evidence is hiding in plain sight. Let's begin with the biblical account itself. In Genesis 28, Jacob, fleeing from his brother Esau after stealing his birthright, stops for the night in a certain place. Using a stone for a pillow, he falls asleep and dreams of something extraordinary. He dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it. God renews the promises made to Abraham and Isaac, land, descendants, and blessings to all nations. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, God assures him. Upon waking, Jacob is awestruck. Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. He consecrates his stone pillow as a standing pillar, a masabah, anoints it with oil, and names the place Bethel, house of God. Notice what Jacob doesn't do. He doesn't climb the ladder himself, unlike heroes in other ancient myths. He merely witnesses divine messengers in transit. The gate of heaven is opened to Jacob, not by Jacob. This creates a fascinating contrast with another Genesis story, the Tower of Babel. In Genesis 11, humans try to build a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, to make a name for themselves. God stops them. But in Jacob's dream, the connection between heaven and earth is established by God's grace, not human effort. The theological message is clear, but the symbolism itself? That comes straight from surrounding cultures. Scholars have long noticed this as following a classic pattern. A hero receives a divine encounter at a sacred place, establishing an origin legend for a sanctuary. Jacob's experience fits perfectly with how other ancient heroes and founders legitimized sacred sites. You see, the Bible doesn't exist in a vacuum. Jacob was traveling through lands saturated with cosmic stairway imagery. From Canaan to Mesopotamia, sacred mountains, temple towers, and divine pillars were everywhere. Anyone from the ancient Near East would have interpreted Jacob's ladder through the lens of their own sacred architecture and myths. What makes this revelation truly shocking is how it was later developed. In the New Testament, Jesus tells Nathanael, "You will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man," explicitly identifying himself as the human divine bridge, the latter personified. 1,000 years before Jacob's dream, the people of Mesopotamia were already building physical ladders to heaven, the ziggurats. These massive stepped temple towers were essentially man-made holy mountains, constructed with terraces and broad staircases ascending to a small shrine at the summit. Their sole purpose to connect the earthly city with the realm of the gods up above. The famed ziggurat of Babylon had a name that reveals everything: Etemenanki, Sumerian for house of the foundation of heaven and earth. Its top platform was explicitly designed as the meeting point between realms. Even more striking, the Akkadian name for Babylon, Bab-Eli, literally the gate of God. It's almost identical to what Jacob calls his vision site, the gate of heaven. Coincidence? Unlikely. Archaeologist Nicholas Wyatt puts it bluntly: Jacob's ladder looks suspiciously like the description of a Babylonian ziggurat, in all probability the temple tower in Babylon. The Epic of Gilgamesh describes Mount Mashu, a cosmic mountain whose twin peaks are as high as the wall of heaven and its roots reach down to the underworld. This mountain has a tunnel leading to the Garden of the Gods, a physical pathway connecting all three cosmic levels: underworld, earth, and heaven. But Mesopotamian literature doesn't stop at mountains. It contains actual stories of humans ascending to heaven. King Etana of Kish, carried to heaven by an eagle, watches the earth grow smaller below him as he ascends to obtain divine help. The sage Adapa journeys to heaven's gate for an audience with the supreme god Anu. These tales told the ancient world that mortal ascension was possible with divine permission. The best preserved example is the ziggurat of a massive tiered pyramid with a broad staircase climbing its face. In daily worship, Mesopotamians believed their city's patron deity would descend these steps to receive sacrifices, or that priests could ascend to present offerings. Sumerian hymns explicitly identify these structures as cosmic connectors. One calls the temple of the moon god Dur-An-Ki, the bond of heaven and earth. Scholar Michael Fishbane observes that while the biblical Tower of Babel story satirizes these grand structures, Jacob's ladder transforms the same imagery. From atop this tower, stairway promise and hope, not doom and dispersal, now unfold. The ladder of Jacob's vision serves the same function as a ziggurat, a cosmic link, yet with a crucial theological difference. In Mesopotamian religion, ascension required kingly privilege or priestly ritual, and the god's jealousy guarded immortality. In Jacob's vision, God takes the initiative, reaching down to bless an ordinary man. Imagery is borrowed, but its meaning is revolutionized. While Jacob slept under the stars, Egyptian pharaohs slept in pyramids inscribed with explicit ladder texts from the pyramid texts, the oldest religious writings we have. These texts, dating to 2400 BCE, 1,000 years before Jacob, contain actual ladder spells to help the deceased king ascend to heaven. Here's one such spell for Pharaoh Unas. Stand up, you two uprights, and descend, you crossbars, that Unas may go up on the ladder that his father the sun has made for him. Not just any ladder, one with specific physical features, 2 upright poles and crossbars, exactly like the ladders we still use today. Even more astonishing, the text invokes Egyptian gods to steady the ladder. Horus and Seth shall take hold of Unas's arms and take him up to the sky. Another spell reveals this ladder as a cosmic device uniting the realms. A ladder is made for the king, knotted together by Re, face to face with Osiris, while I, King Unas, am between them. The sun god Re above, Osiris below, and the king between them, a perfect cosmic axis. Egyptian tomb art even depicts the god Osiris extending his hand to help pull the king up a ladder, literally deifying the pharaoh through this ascension. The Egyptians were so fixated on this imagery that they created a specific hieroglyphic symbol, the maquette, representing a ladder used in tombs as a talisman to help the deceased rise. Later funerary texts continue this tradition. I ascend to the sky on the ladder of divine light. I climb upon it that I may see the gods. Even the pyramids themselves, with their triangular sides, were conceptualized as giant stairways for the king's soul. Some texts describe the sun god Re descending to earth on sunbeams imagined as ladder rungs, divine traffic moving both ways, just like the angels in Jacob's vision. The parallels are undeniable. Both Jacob's ladder and the Egyptian ladder connect earth and heaven. Both are divinely established. Both involve divine beings traveling on the ladder. But here's the revolutionary difference. In Egypt, only the divine pharaoh could ascend the ladder to rejoin his father Ra in heaven. The ladder symbolized royal apotheosis, becoming a god. Jacob, by contrast, was no king, yet he sees a vision previously reserved for royalty and temples. In effect, this ordinary fugitive assumes the role of a temple priest-king, encountering God at the Axis Mundi. Closer to home for the biblical writers were Hittite and Canaanite cosmic axis symbols. The Canaanites believed their storm god Baal established his throne on Mount Zaphon, a literal cosmic mountain connecting heaven and earth. What's remarkable is how explicitly the Bible echoes this in Psalm 48:2, which praises Mount Zion by literally calling it Zaphon. Though most translations obscure this by rendering it beautiful in elevation, the biblical writers weren't creating new geography. They were appropriating the Canaanite cosmic mountain. The Hittites and their Hurrian neighbors had their own version of the cosmic axis. In the Song of Ulikumi, we meet a primordial titan named Upaluri, the Anatolian equivalent of Atlas. This cosmic giant was present when heaven and earth were separated, and the gods placed heaven and earth upon his back. His colossal body forms a living pillar spanning from the underworld through earth to the sky. At the Hittite sanctuary of Yazilakea, reliefs depict sky gods on one wall and underworld deities on another, physically representing the three-level cosmos. Scholars have determined this sacred space was designed for rituals that symbolically allowed participants to climb the cosmic axis during New Year's ceremonies. When Jacob sets up his stone pillar at Bethel and calls it God's house, he's performing a recognizable Canaanite ritual. Standing stones, called Mesopotamia or Betils, were common sacred objects believed to mark points where the divine could descend to earth. The linguistic connection is undeniable. The very word Bethel means house of God in Canaanite languages from the same root as Betil, their term for these sacred pillars. One study notes the best known instance of the kind is the pillar set up by Jacob, which was literally Bethel, the house of God. Most revealing of all, some Ugaritic texts actually use the term sulam, the same word for ladder that appears in Jacob's dream. This isn't just similarity in concept, it's identical terminology. Scholars recognize Jacob's story as following a classic mythic pattern seen throughout the ancient Near East. A hero encounters deity in a liminal space between realms, the ladder, receives divine blessing, and is transformed by the experience. Jacob's dream at Bethel and his later wrestling match form a paired narrative of initiation ordeals that transform Jacob into Israel, the bearer of promise. The biblical writers weren't inventing new religious imagery. They were drawing on symbols their audience already understood. The standing stone, the mountain, the ladder, these were the religious vocabulary of the Canaanite world. reinterpreted through a monotheistic lens. Even in Greece, we find remarkable parallels. In Homer's Iliad, Zeus boasts of his power with a vivid cosmic image. Hang a golden chain from heaven and lay hold of it. All of you gods and goddesses together, tug as you will not drag Zeus from the sky to earth. But if I were to pull it myself, I could draw you up with earth and sea into the bargain. This golden chain functions exactly like Jacob's ladder, a taut connection between heaven and earth, with the supreme deity at the top controlling access. The Greeks had multiple images for this cosmic connection. The rainbow goddess Iris formed a colorful bridge between realms, carrying divine messages. The Milky Way served as a celestial road for souls. In every case, the vertical link between worlds remained a central religious concept. Greek mythology includes its own Tower of Babel story. The giants, son of Earth, rebelled against the gods by literally stacking mountains, placing Ossa and Pelion atop Olympus, trying to create a stairway to heaven. Zeus struck them down with thunderbolts, burying them under those same mountains. The message is identical to Genesis. Unauthorized attempts to breach heaven are doomed to fail. Only the chosen few could traverse realms. Bellerophon attempted to ride his winged horse, Pegasus, to Olympus, but was thrown down. Heracles, after completing his labors, was granted ascension to live among the gods, effectively climbing a ladder of apotheosis. Ganymede was carried upward by Zeus's eagle to become the god's cupbearer. Each story reinforces the same idea we see in Jacob's ladder. The path between heaven and earth exists, but access is strictly controlled by divine authority. Later Greek mystery religions made this symbolism explicit. Initiates into the Mithraic mysteries would symbolically climb a ladder with 7 gates, representing planetary spheres. The 2nd century writer Celsus describes it. The first of the gates is of lead, the second of tin, the third of bronze. Each rung represented a stage of spiritual ascent. Even Plato's philosophy employs the ladder metaphor in his Ladder of Love, an intellectual ascent from physical attraction to divine beauty, climbing step by step toward the divine. The Greeks identified their own axis mundi at the Amphilos stone in Delphi, the navel of the world, where communication with Apollo's realm was possible. They had their divine messenger in Hermes, who could freely travel between Olympus, Earth, and Hades, effectively a living ladder between realms. His caduceus staff later became a symbol of this cosmic connection. It's no coincidence that the Greek word angelos, meaning messenger, was applied to figures like Hermes and Iris. The very same word gives us angels on Jacob's ladder. Scholar Dennis MacDonald has demonstrated how early Judeo-Christian writers deliberately appropriated these Greek cosmic images. When the Gospel of John makes Jesus into Jacob's ladder, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. It resonates with Greek concepts of divine mediators bridging cosmic realms. The theological revolution wasn't in creating new cosmic imagery, but in centralizing access through a single mediator rather than many. In ancient Persia, Zoroastrian texts describe Hara Berazeti, Mount Alborz, a cosmic mountain rising from the center of the earth and tethered to the sky. According to the Avesta, it was so enormous that the sun, moon, and stars revolved around it as an axis. This wasn't just any mountain. It was literally the linchpin holding the cosmos together, the axis mundi of the Iranian world. Zoroastrian eschatology added a fascinating moral dimension with the Chenvat Bridge, a razor-thin pathway that widens for the righteous but narrows to a thin knife edge for the wicked. Think of it as a horizontal ladder. Only the worthy can keep their balance and cross to paradise, while the corrupt plunge into the abyss below. Though not vertical like Jacob's ladder, it serves the identical function, a controlled divine pathway between realms where access is determined by heavenly judgment. Later Persian-influenced Mithraism explicitly incorporated the ladder imagery. Mithraic temples featured a ladder with 7 rungs representing planetary spheres. each associated with a specific metal, as Celsus said. The first gate of lead, second of tin, third of bronze. Initiates would symbolically climb this ladder, shedding planetary influences as they ascended from the darkness of Saturn, lead, to the divine light beyond the stars at the 8th gate. Persian mythology maintains numerous ascension stories. King Kai Khosrow vanishes in a mountain snowstorm taken directly to heaven by Ahura Mazda, remarkably similar to biblical figures like Enoch and Elijah who ascend without dying. The prophet Zoroaster himself experiences mystical journeys through multiple heavenly levels, guided by angels, conceptually identical to climbing cosmic stairs. Even in distant China, we find the concept of Jianmu, a cosmic tree the Yellow Emperor built to enable communication with heaven. This ladder tree grew at the world's center with no branches for 1,000 feet, then spread its canopy in the heavens, a living stairway between realms. Chinese text describes sacred Mount Kunlun in even more explicit terms. Kunlun functions as a sort of ladder which could be used to travel between earth and heaven. Accordingly, any person who succeeded in climbing to the top of Kunlun would magically become an immortal spirit. From Japan's heavenly spear to Polynesian sky ladders, from Siberian shamanic poles to Mesoamerican world trees, these symbols appear across humanity's spiritual landscape. Some cultures even share stories of a time when heaven and earth were connected by ladders, trees, or ropes, until a catastrophe or divine decision severed this link. What we're witnessing isn't just cultural borrowing. It's a profound recurring pattern in human religious imagination. The specific image varies: a mountain, a tree, a bridge, a ladder, but the concept remains. There exists a cosmic axis connecting our world to what lies beyond, and access is strictly controlled by divine powers. Jacob's ladder stands as one variation in this universal human quest to imagine and access the pathway between worlds. Across the ancient world, the cosmic stairway speaks to a fundamental religious intuition that heaven and earth, though separate, are inextricably linked and can, under certain conditions, intersect. Jacob's vision at Bethel didn't emerge from a vacuum. As we've seen, it rests on a rich cultural foundation spanning civilizations. The Mesopotamians built ziggurats so gods could come down while humans symbolically climbed up. The Egyptians inscribed pyramid walls with prayers for ladders so pharaohs' souls could ascend to Ra. The Hittites imagined cosmic pillars supporting the very sky above us. The Canaanites sanctified standing stones as divine contact points. The Greeks told of golden chains and mountain paths binding Olympus to earth. The Persians described world mountains and bridges to paradise. Even distant Asian cultures envisioned sky ladders and cosmic trees. What we're witnessing, as religious scholar Mircea Eliade famously noted, is the universal human concept of the axis mundi, the center of the world connecting different cosmic zones. Comparative mythologists like Bruce Loudon have demonstrated that biblical writers, while presenting unique monotheistic messages, deliberately employed mythic archetypes common throughout the Near East. What makes Jacob's ladder revolutionary isn't the imagery, but its theological transformation. In Mesopotamia, humans built ziggurats through sweat and engineering. In Egypt, only divine pharaohs could ascend heavenly ladders. In Greece, cosmic ascension was reserved for heroes and demigods. But Jacob, a flawed, ordinary man fleeing the consequences of his deception, simply falls asleep on bare ground with a stone for a pillow. The ladder comes to him unbidden, with God at the top assuring, "I am with you." Jacob's ladder democratized the cosmic axis, suggesting even a solitary fugitive could find himself at the center of divine attention. The ladder's symbolism works on multiple levels. It represents divine authority. The one at the top controls cosmic access. It embodies divine communication, a channel for blessings and messages. It marks sacred geography. Bethel becomes a gate of heaven, like Delphi's Amphilos or China's Mount Kunlun. Most profoundly in Jacob's dream, The constant movement of angels up and down transforms Bethel into a thriving junction of spiritual activity, a living link between realms. The symbol's power endured. Early Christian writers recast it when the Gospel of John makes Jesus declare, "You will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." Of course, that identifies himself as the living ladder connecting humanity to God. So what does this mean for how we understand religious revelation? The Mesopotamian ziggurat builders tried to reach heaven through architecture. Egyptian pharaohs sought ascension through magic and ritual. Greek heroes needed divine sponsorship, but Jacob simply received a vision, unbidden, unearned, unexpected. Perhaps divine truth doesn't arrive as completely novel concepts, but as radical reinterpretations of existing human symbols, a divine voice speaking through the language humans already know. The universality of the ladder myth, from Sumer to China, testifies to a shared human yearning to know that our world is meaningfully connected to something beyond. In Jacob's dream, as in countless myths across cultures, that yearning finds its answer. The ladder appears, earth and sky are bridged, and the dreamer awakens transformed. When Jacob awoke, he didn't say, "I've seen something no one has ever imagined." He said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." Perhaps that's the real revelation. The divine doesn't create new realities so much as reveal what was always there, hidden in the symbols we've been sharing all along.